Woj has reported that the Nets are confident, or at least believing, that Blake Griffin's going to come back. Okay, so the Nets, Sean Marks always makes a deal on draft night, right?
Yeah.
He also isn't shy to use first-round picks to get rid of bad contracts. Welcome back to the Glue Guys. It's Mike here. Say hello, Brian. I missed that perfect note.
You're supposed to come in. I was giving it to you.
Yeah, but I want to let you go because I missed it so much. I missed hearing it.
It's been a while. It's been too long, Mike.
Like 3 weeks since Brian and I recorded. I apologize to everyone out
Has
there.
Has it ever been that long? I don't remember a
Nation.
time. You were on the cruise, the Carnival Cruise Line.
I was in the cruise around the world. It was just me.
Yeah.
Me and Jack Nicholson from The Shining.
From The Shining.
That's the actual Shining sequel, not Dr. Sleep, but it's just him on a cruise ship.
I watched Dr. Sleep. Quite liked it. I didn't expect to. More on that later.
I've never watched it. I will never watch it.
That might not be
I did watch No Sudden Move. Fantastic.
Great.
Brian, how are you? So excited to be with you today.
Good to be back. You can tell we've got smiles. We're happy to see each other, Mike. It's been too long. You're out in the cabin, it looks like still, or
yes.
At least
I still have my same background, right? I didn't put up the Glue Nation background. Yeah.
Soon that door behind you will slowly creak open, and a witch might appear. Who knows what? Who knows what paranormal activity could be behind you, Mike? We'll find out soon on the Glue Guys.
Yes.
Mike, what's going on? What's the newest latest? Give it to me. Let's go right into it.
I gotta say it's a buzzy deal. So we're recording this on Monday night, 9:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we got our first Woj bomb of the NBA draft cycle, and it was an unexpected Woj bomb, and it actually has a lot of ripple effects across the NBA, but specifically, it could be an interesting deal for the Nets going forward. There's a piece of it that we'll discuss later, but essentially, the Grizzlies and Pelicans have made a deal. Valanciunas is heading to Nolans, and Steven Adams, who the Pelicans had just traded for and signed to a big deal, is heading to Memphis, along with Eric Bledsoe, who was part of the Drew Holiday trade. And there's draft picks being switched hands and all this stuff. To me, I'm going to dive right into the Nets thing. Bobby Marks, of ESPN, former Nets assistant general manager. I think that's what he was at one point.
Yeah, that's right.
Assistant to the general manager. He tweeted out, and I don't know if this is the most updated information because it seems like the Grizzlies may be moving Eric Bledsoe, so they may not have to do this. But Bobby Marks had tweeted, for this deal to work, it will have to go through on August 6th, and that the Grizzlies will have to decline Justice Winslow's team option. Now, Brian,
Mike,
in our pod many, many weeks ago where we talked about free agency preview,
okay,
a name I did not bring up but who was on my list of free agents to watch for the Brooklyn Nets was Justice Winslow.
Okay.
Now, the thing that intrigues me about Justice Winslow, and I'll get to the negatives in a sec, what intrigues me is and this is such a knock against him because he was, what was he, a top 5 pick coming out of Duke. People were really high on him coming out.
He was a hot commode.
He's basically what he's become and what he is Bruce Brown. He is a version of Bruce Brown. He's frankly probably a more talented player. I mean, I would think no one would disagree with that. He's a more talented player, but Bruce has figured out a way to fit into a role into the NBA where Justice has yet to. The thing about Justice Winslow is he gets hurt all the time, and we have no clue who he is. But I do bring this up because we don't know if Bruce Brown's going to be part of this team. There's been some other reporting, which we'll get to, about who may be rejoining the Nets.
You don't want to just get to it right now?
May not be. Let's get to it right now. Ring the bell. Ring the news bell. Wow. I hope everyone's watching the YouTube, which shout out to the YouTube audience. Brian, do that ring bell motion.
I prefer not to, but it's a little lurid. It's a lurid motion. Yeah. It's one of those hanging bells,
Woj has reported that the Nets are confident, or at least believing, that Blake Griffin's going to come back, but they're not expecting necessarily that Jeff Green will, because Jeff Green's probably going to get more than a veteran minimum salary.
Feels true. That feels right.
So how do we feel about that?
I mean,
we've done like the whole like you pick two, leave one off the island, Bruce Brown, Blake Griffin, Jeff Green thing. But now that it feels like a reality, at least one of them is coming back, that it's Blake. How does that feel over Jeff Green?
I was surprised how good it felt. It actually felt okay. I mean, I like Jeff Green. Don't get me wrong. I love Jeff Green. Friend of the show, Jeff
What are
Green.
other things in your life that you were surprised felt so good?
Great question. I did get I bought a real mattress for the first time, like 2 years ago, and it was
what a great example.
It was a real game changer.
I would say eating oysters.
You didn't expect those, and then it's really about the vinegar is what it's it's just a vinegar vessel, really ultimately.
I'm a cocktail sauce vessel, and I know that's like low rent.
You're still ketchup on hot dogs.
Sorry, I apologize for liking ketchup.
Please do.
America's condiment.
Yeah, it felt okay. I mean, I didn't. I mean, obviously, like again, I love Jeff Green, and a friend of the show, Jeff Green. Can't say it enough. Friend of the show, Jeff Green.
Friend of the show. So is Brooke Lopez, NBA champion. We've never talked about it, but
let's bear that. Actually, somebody specifically emailed us to say, "Hey, give Brooke a shout out." I don't know who it was in the email here. I'll find you someday and shout you out. But they're like, respect Brookie Monster because the man won a chip, and you have to love him, which I do, and it's fine. Congrats. But also, F that whole team. Forget that team, and they were lucky to be there in the first place. Just kidding. I'm trying to put on a spicy demeanor that really isn't natural to me.
It was Luis Torres from the show.
Luis Torres. But yeah, I mean, we can do a quick bit on this if you want, but I did keep one eye on the finals, although ultimately found that pretty unpalatable, for obvious reasons.
It was a wandering eye.
I gave him the googly eye.
For other content.
And anyways, but yeah, so Jeff Green, I mean, like, the idea that we're taking back Blake Griffin, I actually felt pretty cozy to me. Like, looking back at the playoffs and how much, utility we got out of Blake Green, Blake Griffin. It's 9:15 on a weeknight, so bear with us, guys. But yeah, Blake Griffin brought a lot in that last series, and seemed to be like a super integral part to the team going forward. His vibe was really locked in. Not to say that Jeff Green wasn't, but that we get to keep him potentially on an affordable deal, which is ultimately what we're in the business of right now. It doesn't feel so bad to me. It doesn't feel quite so bad. I would love to keep them all, but we can't, Mike. We just can't. And now that we have a little bit of clarity, it's not so bad, ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, it's become the point, so I've looked at it from every angle, and so at the time when I was thinking about Jeff Green, I thought that Jeff Green was that was the one I would choose over because of his three-point shooting was better than Blake's. But then when you really look at Jeff Green's three-point shooting over his career, it's like some seasons are good, some seasons are below average.
Yes,
and he's not a really true consistent three-point threat.
It's a great point too, because you know what we don't want to do? We don't want to go into next year and sour on Jeff Green, Mike. That's what we don't.
Yes.
I never want to be in that position.
Yeah, I never want to sour on him. No. And my thing about Blake, and the only reason why I'm reserved, a little reservation is being held inside of me, is simply the fact that I almost feel like they got lightning in a bottle with Blake last season, particularly in the playoffs. And I don't know if Blake's body, how much can you expect out of Blake Griffin throughout the entirety of the year? Where the energy he brought by being a buyout guy and then being on the roster and then playing in the playoffs, that's sustainable energy that he rode that momentum. I'm a little worried about full season Blake. And I'm sure Nash will deploy him in different spots, and there'll be games where he's resting. He probably won't play back-to-back, so they'll do all the things that they want to do to preserve the energy. I'm a shade worried that, maybe Blake Griffin isn't going to be that consistent of a presence in the Nets lineup, where Jeff Green, you can pretty much always rely on being in the lineup. You don't know what Jeff Green you're going to get.
Fair.
But Blake could be exciting. What if he continues to get his athleticism back and he's even gone to a whole nother level? I'm just wondering. The big question really is how do they bring him back? So is it a vet minimum deal, or is it actually they're eating into their mid-level exception? I believe now, Brian, you're a big guy in the CBA. You love the cap.
Live and
you love
die.
digging into the numbers.
Live and die by it.
Typically
It's
how
my Bible. On the nightstand, I keep it.
typically how buyouts work, and Blake gave out back a lot of money, so his buyout is unique. But typically the way buyouts work, like let's say you are Blake Griffin and you got 100% of your salary, and so next season technically he still should have that salary from the Detroit Pistons. Whatever money he makes from the Nets would be removed from the bill that the Pistons would owe. So I don't know, because it does matter if the Nets are eating into their taxpayer mid-level exception to sign Blake, because they're going to need to use that, I think, for like a real strong piece. And if they're like breaking it up into multiple little pieces, I think they're not going to end up with as much impact as if they, a guy that I really like, which is like Boban, like throw all that mid-level exception right on top of Boban's belly. But Blake Griffin coming back probably as a net. Jeff Green probably gone. We still don't know what's going to go on with Spencer Dinwiddie. We do not know what's happening with Bruce Brown. I'm feeling a little bit better about Bruce Brown as we've gone distance from our last podcast.
There was a good Alex Schiffer, your boy, did a good little roundtable about Spencer Dinwiddie's market value out there just by pulling in reporters from other teams, and like across the board, everyone was like, don't really think that there's a fit here. Like there was not a whole lot of like, I'm, enthused about a big-ish contract for Spencer Dinwiddie. That wasn't happening out there. Wasn't happening from Dallas. Wasn't happening from the Clips Nation. Wasn't happening from a lot of places. So I don't know. It's Netsdaily did a little summary of that too. So it's a good read. Check it out.
Yeah, and so that's the thing that you confront in all of these scenarios. It's that like who is going to pay Spencer Dinwiddie? I still think the money's going to be there. Where I just think the team has moved on from like, unless if his deal is like, honestly, unless if it basically matches the deal that he turned down, which is the 1 year left at $12.3 million. I think they're figuring out a way to use their budget elsewhere. Now, do we have anything else to hit before we hit the draft? Because I had a big draft question for you.
Let's do it. Let's go right in.
Okay, so the Nets, Sean Marks always makes a deal on draft night, right?
Yeah.
He also isn't shy to use first-round picks to get rid of bad contracts.
Mm-hmm.
He did so with Alan Crabb. Torian Prince wasn't that, but there's multiple times when he's kind of taken something and said, "Here, I'll give you a little draft compensation and get rid of a bad contract." Do you think we see that with DeAndre Jordan? The Nets have the 27th pick in the draft. They have 3 second-rounders. Mark seems to actually enjoy drafting in the second round. Not that he doesn't like drafting, but like he's not afraid to like.
He seems to be pretty eager to trade away the first, like a deep first round pick, or at least like not afraid to. So I didn't spend too much time with my draft review just because I have a strong sense that that's going to be another Sadiq Bey situation. I mean, I think that's totally possible. I mean, but it's like, there's a lot to that, but that DeAndre Jordan is in that position should be not a surprise to anybody, I guess, is my like takeaway, whether that's a draft night deal or something else. That's I think it's like you could break the question up that way. I think Sean Marks both likes to trade draft picks, and I think he would like to trade DeAndre Jordan potentially, hoping that it doesn't upset the inner politics of the team. I think we're past that though. I feel like the politicking thing is like, I think we saw how like fragile a season is, like ultimately, and like It's hard to ignore that that's a whole big roster spot with a big big old dent in it financially. So I would be surprised if there's a lot of people coming to bat to like save the DeAndre on the Nets experience from the team. I don't know, maybe that's way off, but that's my sense of it.
Well, you and we body language doctored it all season before it really even became as big of an issue. Like it seemed like KD, Kyrie, and Harden, but mostly KD and Harden, would just like kind of yell at DeAndre Jordan all the time.
Yeah.
They kind of treated him like how the Heatles treated Mario Chalmers.
Yes.
They would just make him they kind of would embarrass him.
Yeah.
On the floor. And it must have sucked for DeAndre to have not played at all as the season ended and into the playoffs. And He's still going to get paid no matter what. I can't imagine that he's going to be like really excited for a whole year where he knows that the camera's going to pan to him on the bench when he's in warmups, and he's not going to play this year. Like, there'd be no reason to use DeAndre Jordan this year except for that he's just a body. And that's almost worse, right? That he's like just a body for this team. Now, here's the thing. It's like who would want the 27th pick and DeAndre Jordan?
Yeah, it's not quite enough.
Right. There, yeah. So it's like, do the Nets have to package a first in that first second that they have, which is number 44, which is the pick that's finally conveyed from the Indiana Pacers. The thing is, and this is bad for our boy DeAndre Jordan, one team, there's probably other teams in the draft who don't have draft picks. One team I know who doesn't have a draft pick in this draft is the Minnesota Timberwolves. And that is a tough scenario to be like, hey, DeAndre, you were great in Brooklyn. We love you. It just is like, we're going to try to allocate resources differently, and we're going to send you to a really great place, a team that has a young, really dynamic young guard, a former Brooklyn net too, as well as a starting point guard, and like one of the dominant big men in the NBA. Go to Minnesota, enjoy Minnesota, and that would be what a sad
Minnesota in the summertime though is quite nice, very nice.
Yeah, there's not going to be much Minnesota in the summertime.
Just finding the silver lining, wherever it is.
Would you be okay with? So here's why it would be a good move, is that if the Nets remove DeAndre Jordan's $10 million a year salary and if they take nothing back from another team, then it really opens up the possibility that Spencer Dinwiddie could come back.
Yeah.
Or that you can match anything that Bruce Brown's going to get for the most part. Like, I think that there's probably a desire from the Nets to cut salary in a way that doesn't damage the core. And the only guys you can do that with are really DeAndre Jordan and like Joe Harris. But would you say that Joe Harris is firmly still in the core? Is he still part of the core of the apple?
It's funny because now that we're on a couple different platforms, shout out to the YouTube, shout out to the Discord, shout out to the TikTok, Mike. I set up a TikTok.
Yeah, tell people about the TikTok.
We got a TikTok. I mean, what else is there to say?
How do they find it?
I don't know. At the Glue Guys, maybe? I think it's the Glue Guys is on TikTok.
I think it's BK Glue Guys.
Is it BK? Yeah.
Maybe.
One of those things.
It's yours.
I forgot. I already forgot. But we'll be uploading tonight after this. But it is funny how different platforms have different kind of levels of toxicity and vocalness about certain things. And the YouTube crowd is so much anti-Joe Harris energy compared to every other platform. It's really intriguing. So I don't know what to make of that exactly. But yeah, I mean, for my purposes, I think you obviously run back Joe Harris again, hoping and praying that the 3 games that he was bad at the end of the season is a regression to a not norm that doesn't exist. And we never see it again. And that he's just his normal 53% shooting, beautiful self forever. And as he gets reps, it's got to get better, Mike, right? What is specific psychological obstacle? Playoff basketball, elite playoff basketball, just the very last 3 games of a series is where you suddenly just forget that. I don't know. I don't buy it. I'm not buying it. It doesn't fit my Freudian archetype that I'm familiar with. Okay. And I went to med school, so I know this stuff.
Yeah. But the kind of the thing I will say that almost stung even more about the Joe Harris situation was that, for the most part, not in every game, but Pat Connaughton.
Patty Connaughton.
Connaughton.
No, it's
that, and I'm not. I swear I'm not doing this because it's white guy and white guy. That's not the comparison I'm going for. But I'm going for a guy who operates around the perimeter as a role player in a crafty manner. Brian's got his third eye working pretty hard on this one.
just waiting for it.
But the edge role player on all these teams, right? The Cameron Johnson campaign for the Suns, right? That fringe. Not that Joe Harris is a fringe role player, but just outside the main sort of production center for the team. Those guys who showed up in the playoffs, Bobby Portis and Patty Connaughton, those guys showing up where Joe Harris did nothing in that series against the Bucks, at least in the second half of that series, it does sting a bit. And what's the difference? I guess the difference is that like they hit shots and Joe Harris didn't, right? Like that's all it comes down to. Like Joe Harris's only utility in the end was just whether he could hit a shot, and he just couldn't. I do think the Nets need to like, and this is going to go into to draft stuff too. I do think the Nets need to upgrade. Like they need a guy on the bench that can get a bucket in a way. I know when they have James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant all healthy, like the bucket getter type, the Jordan Clarkson archetype is not as necessary. But I also think like, hey, you can't trust that Kyrie Irving's going to be healthy the whole time. And, you may want like a little juice on the bench if Spencer Dinwiddie's going to be gone. Yeah. So the Nets, I do want to push them like closer towards like Ish Smith. Like grab, if Ish Smith is cheap this offseason, which I don't think he is, but like he's the type of bench guard that I think would have played in the Nets Bucks series at least a little bit and given the team a little bit of juice. But anyways, the Joe Harris question is going to be a big one, because if there's one move to make during the season, like if a guy comes loose, like a team, let's say the Portland Trail Blazers like suck this year and then they trade Dame Lillard, Robert Covington, who's been changed to every other team in the league, if he's the kind of like the perfect, like, hey, we'll give you Joe Harris, you give us Robert Covington, and we'll keep things rolling. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Coming back, draft stuff and Ring Chaser power rankings.
Oh, beautiful.
And we're back, Brian. How are you?
I'm good. Look ahead.
We have some lovely email, netspod@gmail.com. Bri,
yeah,
guide us.
Let's plow. We'll plow through this. Aaron, shout out to the Discord Fever, says, hey boys, there are a lot of spots to fill this offseason. We've talked a lot about who might come and go, but my question is money. With our 3 max contracts and Joe Money Harris, there isn't a lot of room left. We actually have draft picks this year. Our rookie's going to get some play time in this upcoming season. How many vet minimum contracts can we take on? Let's look at numbers instead of people. Thank you, Aaron Fever. Very, very concise. Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I was looking at doing a little prep for the draft special extravaganza, maybe I would even call it. That's forthcoming. I got to thinking about how much time are these guys going to get, and it really is dependent on a lot of our other off-season ideas here, Mike, what we're going to do. Because I was looking at these guys, I mean, it's hard to imagine a 27th pick getting a lot of run. But Mike James got shipped in from Siberia. So, at the same time, crazier things have happened. Yeah. So
what I think the only way, we all obsess over like, I live on Nets Twitter. I see what's the discussion, the JT Thor discussion, the drop. Some people love Cam Thomas from LSU, the freshman who just put up points all season long. Mm-hmm. There's like guys that everyone falls in love with. There's a reason why Sean Marks traded the 19th overall pick, who ended up being Sadiq Bey, who could have helped the Nets, but for Landry Shamet, essentially. And I know that like the trade got more complicated and Bruce Brown was thrown in and John Moose was thrown in, all that stuff. Like any guy past, there will be some guys who can contribute down the line in the mid-teens, but the late 20s, you're not going to get anyone that's going to do anything for you. Now, the thing that you could try to aim for if you're the Nets is like, what's the archetype of a player that could help you, right? And like maybe the guy won't the first year, but the second year or third year they're in your roster, they could. So like there's guys I like that I'm trying to think about as like, okay, this is someone who in a year or two could become, I don't know, gets you 14 minutes a game. Maybe even in the playoffs, he maintains that minutes usage. Like those type of players are your Nick Claxtons. So super athletic big men who can set screens and dunk the ball. Like those guys usually get on the floor. I think crafty guards. So there's a freshman guard out of Auburn, Sharif Cooper, who averaged 22 points and 9 assists a game with the Auburn Tigers. I'm in love with him. The only thing is he shot like 22% from three last year, and I think he shot 37% from the floor, which is if you score 22 points a game and then you just had no efficiency at all as a scorer, that's like a startling. That means your team must have been like had no other talent on it besides JT Thor, who really didn't produce at all for you. I don't know, like you have to find sort of that like it's such a funny term, water bug guard. You know, we got to find the water bug guard out there.
And there's a couple of them on our list. I will say though that the history. I've gone up and I've pulled up the history of the number 27 pick, and Mike, there's a murderer's row of hits. And I'll starting in 2018 because 2019 and 2020, who knows? That's not decided yet. Okay, it takes a little bit of time, but 2018 to 2013. Here's some names. Robert Time Lord Williams on the Celtics.
Beautiful. That would be amazing.
Kyle Kuzma.
Fantastic.
Pascal Siakam.
Wow.
Larry Nance Jr.
Jeez.
Bogdan Bogdanovic.
Really?
Rudy Gobert.
Jeez.
I'm saying the 27th pick is blessed. It's also
so the Nets better not trade the 27th pick.
It's a mystical number. It's Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix and all those people.
What a downer.
Well,
Jesus.
It's mystical. I'm just saying it's mystical. There's good and bad, a yin and yang to the number 27.
Homicidal or
yeah.
Well, not homicide. No one murdered a bunch of people.
Who knows? Not yet, but someday.
Someday.
So, but there's something there. There's something there.
Well, okay, let's look at all those players and what they were. So a lot of them, like Nance and Kuzma, were smaller fours, right? Like the tweener type between 3 and 4. You said Gobert was a list. Gobert's like obviously European player. He was so skinny coming into the league. There was a lot of projection there. So like, who was that guy in this draft? And who else was on the list? You had any guards?
Bogdanovic.
Bogdanovic, European.
I don't know. Could you call Siakam a guard? No,
but Siakam's another tweener 3-4 type.
Yeah,
right.
No guards in that list.
So you're getting inefficient, like not inefficient. You're getting that's the zig when everyone else is zagging type thing. Like you're getting guys who not many people. I mean, obviously, if they're getting drafted in the 27th overall pick, not many people love them, Bri.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Who knows?
Who is the Kuzma Siakam of this year? So what you're looking for is like a
I've got some names. I would say the Pascal Siakam. So before let me even frame this up a little bit, and we're going way off script because there's even more emails. But let's just go. Let's ride. Yeah. So I went and did there's a Samford.edu. Samford is an educational. It's not Stanford. It's Samford. So it's different, slightly different, basically the same. Some guy there did an analysis of the most accurate mock draft enterprise of all of the different sports journalist outfits. And Bleacher Report, I mean, this is before The Athletic. This is from 2018. But Bleacher Report is the most, has hit the most often and has the least margin of error, followed by The Ringer, USA Today, SB Nation, Sports Illustrated, and in the rear is CBS Sports. So anything that you see from CBS Sports, junk, garbage, toss it in the bin, Mike. It's out of here. Get it out. Just kidding. I'm sure there's other people working very hard, and it was just 1 year. But I did want to say that of the two of all the so Netsdaily did a big aggregator of all the different mock drafts. Two big names, multiple hits on each, and one who I think I even comped this before I found out that Pascal Siakam was the 27th pick at one point. Very Pascal Siakam-esque in terms of his build and what he wants to be. Zaire Williams.
Yes,
the Stanford freshman.
Reach.
Not Samford. Not from Stanford this time. The other place.
The Samford of the West.
Sanford West. So Zaire Williams. It's irresponsible.
If people don't know who he is, he's 6'10", 190.
I got him at 6'9". I got him at 6'9", 185. Just FYI.
That's your reading. I laser pointed him myself at the combine. Yeah, I got 6'10".
I believe
ultra athletic. I think he was like a top 5 recruit in the country. But he goes to Stanford. They have an insane season where they're just like living out of hotels and
Right.
like because they couldn't play basketball there. I think didn't he have an injury too during the year. He shot abysmally, as a term that we use in the draft. Abysmal shot.
Yeah.
Averaged, is this correct? 14 points.
Yeah, something not great. The
Oh,
optics.
that's per 30. That's per 30.
No, it's like 10, right? It was something like
Yeah.
His mechanics are bad, fully flawed. He's got the chesty shot, but I mean, Pascal Siakam's mechanics weren't great too when he entered, and I'm gonna continue with this meme until it's dead in the ground. But yeah, it's irresponsible, Zaire Williams, because like he's the high ceiling guy, right? He's the boomer bust. And that usually doesn't pan out, and especially when you're trying to win chips, he's not. It's unfortunate, but he's probably not the guy, just because like he's almost certain to not contribute right away, and if he does, he's contributing in a way that's like way redundant for what we need. But long term, it's super fun, and we also haven't had like a super fun dunker bro on our team ever, and we've, I've always
besides Jeff Green. Jeff Green was like old man energy.
I mean, that's the best kind of dunker bro is old man energy, but this is a little different. You're right.
We need a youthful bounce,
a spring and a step.
Jared Springer. Are we bringing up Jared Springer right now?
That could be next. Well, but anyways, that was the one that came to mind first when seeing like those names, because that does seem to be the guy with the most sort of the highest ceiling, as they say.
Yeah, but that gets back to the whole thing of like that would be a great pick if the Nets weren't trying to win a championship. Right?
That's a 2018 Nets pick right there, is what that is.
Yeah, it just feels like, and again, we've said this before during this show. It just feels like the Nets are going to trade this pick. They're going to trade the first round pick, and they still have 3 second round picks. And I would urge them to use at least 2 of them to fill out the bench and maybe try to continue to build some youth. But like when you think about this team, I think they're going to need more younger players at the end of the bench than they had this year, because they're not going to have like Marcus Aldridge isn't going to shake loose. They're already going to have Blake. Jeff Green's going to be gone. I think there's a chance definitely one of Spencer Dinwiddie and Bruce Brown may be gone. If they trade the pick with DeAndre Jordan, like they're going to have a lot of open roster spots. And now we'll get to the ring chaser thing in a sec, because I think that's the easiest way the Nets are going to fill their roster. But like it wouldn't kill me if they had a couple of young pups at the end of the bench, Theo Pinson types, excited energy, just excited to play on a team with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. Brought in practice every day, brought the energy level up, because the Nets bench was in our run of our podcast. Okay, we've been doing this for
almost 20 years. I think it's the 20-year anniversary going on.
We invented podcasts. Like that was the Nets bench could have been better. This was a middle of the pack Nets bench. And if I'm Sean Marks, I'm drafting for bench. I'm drafting for bench celebrations and energy. That's where I'm going to go for my contribution, because none of these guys are going to play.
If you're keeping
if you look at Sean Marks' draft history, though, where has he been really successful? Right? He's been great. One, at drafting big men. I mean, he drafted Jared Allen when he did, and Nick Claxton is already looking like he's heading towards sort of like I'm not going to say he's going to get as much money as Jared Allen is going to get on his next contract, but like Nick Claxton's heading in the place where like he could be a $20 million center at some point in his career.
Oh yeah.
Rodions Kurucs was a good pick for one season, and then he was bad after that.
For karmic reasons, who knows what? Something weird happened there.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can say, yeah, well, we know. I mean,
but it's weird to say like that he like fell off because of that, though. Like falling off because of an off.
We don't know that.
Yeah, right. That's right. It's a weird comparison. Yeah, weird line to draw.
But and then Marks made the Karis LeVert selection, which shows. So if you kind of take all of those together, okay. Marks isn't afraid of injury risk, because LeVert was like a huge one, and that's how he got Karis LeVert when he did. He loves super athletic big men, which is like, who doesn't? But some GMs like don't draft nearly as well as Sean Marks does when it comes to big men like that. So again, you look through the draft and you say, who's sort of an injury risk that may be falling? So Jared Butler from Baylor was the other guard in the backcourt with Davion Mitchell. And Jared Butler just got cleared by like the NBA's doctors to say, hey, you can continue trying to be an NBA player. I'm not sure. I imagine that's like a heart condition of some, like I don't know why you'd have to get cleared. It's like either spine or heart usually when they mess with that. But he was ultra productive at Baylor. He was frankly more productive over his career than Davion Mitchell. If you're not afraid of injury risk, he's the guy that you go to. And there are a ton of, and I don't think the Nets need to draft a center necessarily, even though, I mean, there's my favorite guy in the draft is Nemias Queta from Utah State.
Who seems to really be falling, Mike.
Yeah, who seems to be falling back towards the Nets territory, which gets me excited. But there's like Bones Highland from VCU, who's a guard, who's a good shooter, who can do it. JT Thor's the power forward that everyone really likes. Ultra athletic, still figuring out the game. There's multiple bigs that you could like. The only big I would say that please do not draft is Luka Garza, who is super productive at Iowa. But Brian, have you seen Luka Garza run?
No, no, I haven't. What does that look like?
Do you ever play Buck Hunter at
sure,
at like a bar?
Yeah, I've been known to pull up the Buck Hunter.
You know when you got the Buck Hunter, you got the shotgun, right? And you're aiming.
So
you
here's
haven't shot yet.
I'm more like I have both of them in my hands at the same time. And then, you know that meme? Yeah.
Yeah. Luka Garza is like when the game slows down after you hit a buck in the head, like it does like a slow-mo.
Right.
And it like falls to the ground in slow motion. That's how he runs.
Wow.
I
can see it. I actually see it. Yeah, I get it.
But he scored 24 points a game, 9 rebounds, 1.6 blocks. He's huge. He's kind of like what people thought Brook Lopez was athletically when they didn't really watch the Nets.
They had no idea. Yeah.
Yeah, when they had no idea. I would just urge. I love a big, just a big beast of a man as a player. I would ask if the Nets could avoid Luka Garza. But I love his teammate, Joe Weiskamp, 3-point shooter, ultra athletic himself, even though you don't really see it on the floor. There's like a lot of guys I like, and I just don't want to be. This happens every year. I always get disappointed when the Nets don't use some of their draft picks.
Well, can I say who else shares your opinion of big,
Please.
Burly men? Is Ron Kaplan, who saying Ron wants to draft size, and more size, preferably girth over height. Hopefully, the Bucks finally prove, and Lakers last year for that matter, that small ball does not work. It may work in regular season, and when everything slows down and the refs don't blow the whistle in the playoffs, it's old-fashioned smash-mouth basketball. Love the pod. Love you, Ron. He's got something to say there, Mike, and I'm hearing it. I'm all ears because I've been down with the thickness for a long time. And
that will always make me laugh.
And one of the new thick boys on the scene is Day'Ron Sharp. Are you familiar with Day'Ron?
Of course,
and his work
rocked to the Nets in many locations.
In 4 of the 10-ish outlets here, he was linked. So at the 27th pick, a 6'11" center from North Carolina. At a whopping 265, Mike. That's where I need to see it. If you're a freshman and you're 265, that means in 2 years you're going to be like 275, 280, and then in 5 years you're going to be 300 pounds because that body type, it only goes up, Mike. It only goes up from here.
The place you really want to be living is Raekwon Gray from Florida State.
Sure.
He's 6'7", 270.
Oh, those are good numbers. Those are strong.
Those are good numbers.
Those are good numbers. By the way, I don't know if you see the Baron Davis clip that's making its rounds on Twitter.
No, what?
He's. I mean, I'm not. This is as an admirer. It was posted on the Discord. Shout out the Discord. He is 42 and crushing it on a basketball court with a very new body, prominently thick. So shout out to Baron Davis.
Good.
And his
Baron Davis has always had a little
This is
chunks,
this is
which I
notably
appreciate.
thick.
Like what James
I'll,
Harden looked like.
I'll send it. Crank it up, dial it up to 11. No disrespect. We're all headed there, but and he's still balling, so good on him. But yeah, so okay, so wait, show me your guy. What's his name?
I already lost him again.
6'7", 270.
6'7", 270 from Florida State. He played with Scotty Barnes, but Raekwon Gray. Google him up. He's a 22-year-old junior. Averaged 16 points. I mean, he was really the team leader last year on a team that, like, Florida State always does this, where they have a freshman wing who doesn't start is the top 5 pick.
Look at these.
Like Patrick Williams was.
Look at these thighs. Pair of Christmas hams right here. That's what you like to see.
Yeah. Now, I wish his wingspan was like 7'3". It's so here on Tankathon, it's listed as 6'11", which is, longer than he is tall or than his height. But if he had like a 7'3", 7'4" wingspan on that size, I'd be like, that's the guy. Dude. I mean, really the guy I'm dying for, who is going to go before the Nets pick at 27. And this would like almost be the one player that if he was on the board and the Nets had, like, let's say they had a deal in the works where I understand they may want to trade DeAndre Jordan, but let's say they had a deal in the works. They said, but this is the one guy, if he falls to us, we're going to stay here. And this is like a someone in reason. Usman Garuba, big man from Real Madrid, who played for the Team Spainers, playing for Spain right now in the Olympics. Ultra defender, described as someone who's like going to be an all NBA defensive player at some point. Actually played minutes in Europe at his age. 6'8", 230. He guarded KD in the Spain USA game. Like, if he falls, because to me, he is a rookie who would play because he played professionally in Spain. He is just a defender at this point in his career, so you could just use him as that. It's an easy thing to put him back into the NBA as. He's the one guy that I think has like a reasonable chance of somehow falling because he has no offensive game really at all to speak of that could become a contributor. And I almost going to go this far to say, and I know this is impossible, like I kind of wish the Nets could trade up and get him because he is the one rookie that can translate right now for them. I mean, they're not going to get up high enough to get like Chris Duarte or however you say his name. Or I mean, Corey Kispert's going to go way higher than him. And Trey Murphy's another hot name who's like an ultra 3-point shooter. But I think he's going to go way earlier than people expect. There's so many fun names.
You ever look at Kessler Edwards? You ever look at that guy?
I haven't dove into Kessler Edwards yet.
He's like a weird mechanics Reggie Miller vibe kind of thing, but like it's always weird to me when like somebody shoots like 38% from 3 in college and they're like, he's going to be great though at shooting. It's like, really? Because that's like, I mean, that's good. You're on your way. But I always like try to figure out how these scouts, I don't know figure that projection out. Yeah. For like this translates to, what, when. Are they even actually doing this? I'm giving them a lot of credit. I assume they are, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're just like, using their witching rods to figure this stuff out.
Do we have any other draft thoughts? I mean, let's just do the one big prediction. Like, my one big prediction for the draft is the Nets have 4 picks. So they're not going to use all 4 to that on draft night. And the first round pick will probably be moved either in a deal to shed DeAndre Jordan's contract or to do what they did 2 seasons ago with the Clippers, where the Nets traded their first round pick to the Clippers to get a future first round pick, which was the Sixers first round pick, which ended up being the 19th overall pick last year in the draft. I could see the Nets doing that, being like, hey, we'll give any team that wants it our first round pick right now for a future first that will be protected for whatever you want to do, basically, just to push off not making the pick now and keep the asset into the future. I could see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any hot takes on that. I mean, I've learned to just not spend too much time on the draft. Don't spend. I did. This was like last year. I said I almost like tattooed it on my ribs because I spent a lot of time.
You did. You dove in.
Yeah, and then I was like, this was dumb. I should not do this anymore.
I mean, this is really. I will say though, for a team that does have 4 picks, this is like the best draft to have 4 picks.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of weird volatility, which is if you've got a bunch of janky deep picks, volatility is what you want.
I almost wish the Nets were like bad, so that they could use all of them and like we could obsess over those 4 players and track them all year.
That segues nicely into what Albert D is saying
Sure.
from the email sphere. Shout out to Albert D. Hey guys, should Nets fans be worried if the big 3 do not sign extensions this summer? I feel like if they don't, there will be a cloud over the entire season and fear that they might leave us behind with no draft picks. So he's worried about being bad again. That was the segue. And Albert, yes, you're right. If they don't sign that extension, that is a nightmare scenario. I really have to imagine that they will. And if they weren't going to, you would probably start knowing about it starting very soon, or probably already have started hearing about it, because like that would be a pretty big rift in the NBA at this point.
But I know as terrible as this sounds, and no one wants this. Everyone wants championships. If it became like, hey, it seems like Harden, KD, and Kyrie don't want to come back, the free for all of the fire sale that would be happening. Yeah. In Brooklyn, how many draft picks would come back to the Nets? It would almost be better for our podcast if like the Nets could get
just
like 27 future first round picks, like, and just be like, we're just shipping. Kyrie's going to Minnesota. Kevin Durant's going to the Wizards.
Is there like
James Harden's going back to Houston?
A Stepien rule the other way around of just like too many first round draft picks? Like, can you
the Presti rule? The same Presti rule? Yeah. I think there should be, because the Thunder have so many that it's like, hey, we'll trade 6 and 5 first round picks for number 1. Like what else do they have to do?
Yeah.
Real quick. So this is something I'm excited about, Brian. I've been thinking about this a lot. I feel like the term ring chaser isn't, it seems like a negative, but I disagree. I think it's a positive. It's someone who's older in their career, who once had a bigger role, is willing to sacrifice that role to try to win a championship.
It's noble. It's a noble thing.
It's a noble pursuit, though I think the term ring chaser just feels like you're not deserved of that championship that may be looming. Like how Gary Payton won one with the Miami Heat. I don't remember what he did that season for the Heat, but like that felt it felt like Gary Payton, if he was going to win one, should have won one more at the peak of his powers and couldn't do it. And it feels I don't consider him like an NBA championship in my head, but he obviously is a champion. Anyway,
we'll suck on that, Gary. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, come at me, glove. Sorry, I really don't want Gary Payton to come after me.
He'll come because he will.
He will come after me. So what I wanted to figure out, the ring chaser sort of ethic is a very powerful tool that contenders can use to improve their roster for very cheaply. We saw that the Nets, I think Jeff Green could have been classified as almost a ring chaser last year for the Nets. Blake Griffin was a midseason ring chaser, as was LaMarcus Aldridge. These guys sacrificing money and playing time to come to Brooklyn for what they thought was going to be a championship run. Now, what's interesting about next year, and why I think next season may in fact be one of the most interesting seasons in recent NBA history, is that not only do you have now this new NBA champion, who a team with a great story, Giannis gets drafted by the team and stays in Milwaukee and wins this championship. You also have LeBron coming back with hopefully, for them, a healthy Anthony Davis. LeBron only has so many more times to go for an NBA championship. This is almost like the last ride for LeBron. The Warriors on their comeback trail with Klay Thompson coming out of his injury, Steph and Draymond, and they have all their draft assets. They have 2 draft picks in this draft. They have James Wiseman to possibly put into a trade, Andrew Wiggins. So that team's loading for bear. And then there's even other teams, like the Clippers, who knows what's going to happen with Kawhi. But if the Clippers don't do anything this year, they're going to combust and it's going to be horrible. The Miami Heat are always lurking around. And the Phoenix Suns, CP3 does come back. They were just in the NBA championship. There's like a lot of teams that are interesting. So what I wanted to do was figure out, if I was a Jeff Green type, if I was an NBA veteran who probably could make more money elsewhere, but I wanted to just win a championship. I just wanted to be on a great team and win a championship. Where would I go? right?
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, Bri.
Yeah.
If you're that type of person, what factors are at play? Because I think it's more than just, hey, this team could win the championship. Because I think like climate, the city itself, all those sort of like living conditions, and who you're playing with matter almost as much as like being a contender.
Well, I will even add more matrices to that, which is like, there's a couple of different ways of doing it. There's like there's the Jeff Green version of it, and there's also the Jared Dudley version, where you are truly out to pasture in the best way possible.
You love Jared Dudley,
of course. It's only because I have good taste that I love Jared Dudley. But so there's like part of it too, which is like, am I ever will I ever need to play? And that could be a pro or a con. That could be, some people, presumably people want to play.
DeAndre Jordan in the Jared Dudley territory,
right?
An overpriced Jared Dudley.
Anyway, so it's another little factor to stick in there. Obviously, I'm biased because I live in center of the universe, Brooklyn, New York. So I have my preferences about where I would want to live, but not everyone wants to live in a 1.5er. That's a 1.5 bedroom in Brooklyn, New York. I get that. I understand that it's being just walking distance to Ethiopian food, it doesn't rank high on everyone's, needs. But it's important for me, Mike. So I have that prejudice to work through. That being said, obviously basketball wise, I rank Brooklyn, both basketball wise and lifestyle wise, pretty high in that. Are you asking me like my ranking right now, or just, what's the, because I'm sure you have yours.
Let me give you the contenders, right? So Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah.
Milwaukee Bucks. I put the Suns in there just because they were just in the championship, though I don't think people are going to be jumping on the Suns bus, the Suns and 4 bus.
Don't muddy the waters before I get a chance here.
Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, please.
Warriors, Lakers, Clippers, in Heat. So here's what I'm thinking, right? Is like, I think partly why Blake Griffin wanted to come was it was in New York, right? Like, I don't think you can put the Knicks into the conversation because they're not really going for rings at this moment. I think that's like if you choose the Knicks in this scenario, you're choosing it more for just like pure sort of like I just want to play at the Garden and I want the celebrity, all that stuff. When you think about if you're a desired NBA free agent who could contribute to a championship team, where would you want to be? Where would you not want to be?
Here's what I'll say. Like, obviously, Bucks has got a problem. The Bucks have a problem. They're great. It's a Cinderella story, but Milwaukee is cold, and it's a small city. I don't know. Is that am I?
I think you're right.
Am I leaning too hard on the because they did just win a championship? So like by that metric, they're the most likely to win the chip. So if you're evaluating your decision on that level, that's like the primary thing. Okay, that's probably the surest bet. Although I'm not even sure about that because, like, let's be honest, they kind of cakewalked in there. But besides the point, then you got to deal with being winners in Milwaukee.
They cakewalked. It's that Giannis put his foot underneath Kyrie's
He slipped a cake under Kyrie's foot.
Hard ice cream cake. It
frozen.
Just came out of a Carvel ice cream
cake with the box on. It was a box on Carvel cake.
But he's a great guy. Giannis is a great guy. How dare we? Great guy. He seems like a nice guy. He says nice things.
Yeah. He wanted to win really bad. We forgive everything on the way
over
up.
Words. And the action I saw was him.
I'm glad that we've got
inexplicably
we've gone full
diving his legs underneath Kyrie's.
Yeah. I'm with you, Mike, but we're not to belabor the point, but it is.
No, it's just actions over words.
It's just that Carvel cake was. Anyways,
what did Girl Scouts teach me?
Yeah,
actions over words.
So that's another thing to weigh in. It's like now that that Giannis is like a diabolical and treacherous person, you might not want to be on a team with him. That's another. It's a. I'm just kidding.
He is the NBA's greatest evil.
He's truly.
Because everyone thinks he's nice.
Right. It's a Kaiser Sose. And wait, no, that's not how it works. Wait, who's the bad guy that everyone?
You are saying that Giannis is exactly like Kevin Spacey.
Easy.
What? That's what you said.
Yeah. Anyways,
our TikTok?
This
Is
is for the TikTok. So I mean, here's what I've been to L.A. You know, I've seen that part of the world.
La-di-da.
I've been to Miami. Okay, I've spent a day in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I've been to Milwaukee.
I went to Phoenix when I was like 11, so I got that. So I've been to most of these places.
Phoenix is nice.
Never been to the San Francisco area though. Never been that. So I can't comment.
Neither have I.
Yeah, people seem to like it. People like it out there. I like that weather. I mean, that like 55 to 75. That's a sweet spot right there. Sunny. Just a windbreaker. That's all.
Just
I'm a windbreaker wearing son of a gun. You know.
So part of my evaluation is one. So I think the Lakers are really high up on the list. I think the Warriors are high up. I like you think the Bucks are kind of low. Also because like that team, it doesn't really incorporate sort of new talent often. No. Like PJ Tucker came in and got big minutes on that roster, but it feels like the Bucks are more of like a bigger system like the Spurs were. And it takes a minute to fit in there. With like we're the Nets, like Nash is just like, oh, here's a new ingredient, put him into the stew. Like he doesn't even oh, here's some chocolate milk. Let me just pour it right into my bouillabaisse.
The way that Milwaukee mourned Dante DiVincenzo was like, it's like, have you never, like, we went through like 29 starting lineups, right? Like, what are you talking about, Dante I mean, I'm sure he's a big part of the rotation, blah, blah, blah. What we like, it's like.
I'm glad the Bucks hate finally came out in the hour mark of our podcast.
Everyone's like, it's Sonny Corleone out here. It's just Dante DiVincenzo, all right? He wasn't the heir apparent, right?
Sonny Corleone?
I don't know. Who did people mourn? Who did people not want to go? Who's Ned Stark? Wasn't Ned Stark?
Yeah, definitely not Ned Stark.
No. He wasn't. He's not a. I mean, you know, no disrespect.
He's more like Catelyn Stark's brother. You know, who like the traitor, the guy who like rats out the family and
the moon castle guy. Who's that? Like the moon people? The moon door.
Catelyn Stark's brother was like he was like the squirrely sort of guy who doesn't really do anything to protect the family.
You're not going to spoil. You're not going to spoil Game of Thrones again, are you?
No. It was like 10 years ago.
Could they have at least just made Jaime kill the Ice King, and then he'd be the Kingslayer, and he's on a redemption arc? Could they have at least just done that? They had to make, anyways. We'll see.
Yeah, that would have been that
at least. We could kickstart. We could crowdfund.
Not be king, please, because he's like the worst character that they had.
Anyways.
But anyway, so in my rankings, and this is why this matters, is that because you know there's gonna if there's a pool of NBA vets who are going to be out there to be had that may want to come to Brooklyn. PJ Tucker is one of them. He's been linked to the Nets because he played basketball at Texas against Kevin Durant and poked many Nets in the eyes. He still has multiple Nets eye juice on his fingers as we speak, along with champagne.
He's like that Pan's Labyrinth character with like the eyes on his you know the one? That's how much that's how many eyes he pokes.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to eliminate the Suns, the Heat, even though the Heat are attractive. I think the talent deficit is like they don't have nearly as much talent as like the upper crust of the NBA. So I'm eliminating them. The Clippers, because the Kawhi situation with his injury, who knows what he's going to do. So Clippers are out. I say it's Bucks, then it's the Lakers are number 3. And I say most people would be like, oh, the Lakers are number 1. But LeBron actually, like, there aren't many people. It's not that they don't want to play with LeBron, but like there's like this like cavalry of NBA veterans who, oh, LeBron's here, I definitely want to play here. It's like it is Jared Dudley. It's like, but that it's basically just Jared Dudley.
It's just Jared Dudley.
There's guys who've enjoyed playing with LeBron, but like what we saw with the Nets, like there were multiple players who seemed to have really no relation with KD, Kyrie, and James Harden who like just wanted to play for the Nets to play with those guys. Where that hasn't really happened with LeBron. Like he structures the team in a way, but he doesn't really get those kind of players. He gets guys paid. He doesn't get cheap sort of contracts. So I put Lakers number 3.
I just felt like a pang of excitement at the notion that I get to watch a whole season of James Harden on the Nets. I just had to. I feel a pang.
I
of that.
know.
Yeah.
And I do. As disappointing as the end of the season was, it's like it'll make this upcoming season, even more exciting. The fact that they didn't win the championship, because it's like, okay, now we're gonna have a full roster, hopefully, of all three guys who are healthy, and like the Nash can actually set up some type of semblance of a consistent rotation.
When does the season start? Do you know when the season starts?
I think it's going to be normal. I think it's
Really?
probably around Halloween, right?
Short, like they're not doing the. Wow, great, love it.
Yeah, I think it's mostly normal. I think it's getting back to normal. Number 2, I say Warriors, and number 1 is the Nets. I think the Nets are still the most attractive team to want to.
You've become a real homer, Mike. I didn't think I would see it. I don't think I would see the
practical.
day. Yeah.
Practical.
Your
What
homer,
did you want? I mean,
your homer credentials are beginning to show.
yeah. But anyway, so that's our show, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Alan Backman. I mean, we need to get some emails that are getting in the backlog, but we'll get to them. We'll get to all you guys. There's some people in there. Rich Wong. We'll get to you guys.
Yeah.
Next time. Plenty of time for all that. Mike, we're gonna do another 2-hour-long episode tomorrow. No, when are we gonna link up again? Someday soon. Oh, after the draft.
Maybe after the draft.
I'm gonna be in Asheville, North Carolina for a bachelor party for the draft.
That's kind of a spot.
Yeah, I guess that's been happening.
Well, do you not want to do a show then? Because you may be.
Well, I'll be there, but I mean, we could try. Nah, probably not. We probably got to do it on Monday. I'll be back early on Sunday though.
Okay, so that may be. We'll figure it out. We'll talk.
Do one with like Alex Schiffer or something. You pull him in.
Yeah, I may scoop up. I mean, particularly because there's a lot of buzz that's kind of actually been happening as we've been recording the show. Of like, we're getting a lot of those leaked reports of like all the discussions, the trade discussions that happened before the draft. These are now coming out because this is the Monday before the draft. So there was a report that the Raptors have significant interest in Ben Simmons, and that one possible trade that was proposed is like a sign and trade Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet going also, OJ Anunoby, and the 4th overall pick for Simmons, which was rejected by the Raptors. So like there's like all these things that may happen that may greatly impact the Nets.
Big time. That's a big time trade.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Next time. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining me.
Hey.
5 stars. We want them. We need them. We've been at 319 for like 5 months now. So we got to get at least one more 5-star.
2,000.
Yeah, up to 2,000. All right. Thanks everybody. At Netsdaily, at The Athletic, Discord invites in the Twitter bio. We're on TikTok now. Whatever. What are you gonna do with that? I don't know. Who knows? Howard Dean. All right. Love you guys.
Bye.